From the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina, this is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, presented by A Cloud Guru, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Just myself this week. This is Aaron. Brian wasn't able to make it, but we have a continuing theme on the show from the last couple episodes, and that is digging a little deeper into solutions around IoT and some of the areas to look at when you're considering solutions like this. And so with that, I have Stuart Mitchell, CEO of Mokanix. Stuart, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, Aaron. Thank you for having me on the Cloudcast.
Absolutely. And so tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your background to get us started.
Sure, will do. So I started my working life actually in radio broadcasting. I've got a love of audio and I'm a huge podcast fan. So, stoked to be here today. After spending 7 years of building radio studios for the BBC, I moved into telco. That was quite a long time ago. So I was working in the fields of radio paging. I worked in voicemail for a little bit and in the early days of VoIP. But finally, I moved into photo messaging around 2002. That was my first sort of step into the world of wireless communications properly, mobile phones as we know today. My second taste of working in a startup. And then, I've been kind of on the corporate track for a while, moving through various companies. I've been acquired by other companies and bits and pieces until I find myself in Tata Communications in 2012 is when I actually joined Tata.
Okay. So that was actually going to be my next question. So there was this kind of, as I understood it, Tata created this company, if you will, and it's to go after a new market. It almost seems like a little bit of a spin out, if you will. And so tell us a little bit of what did you do for the parent company, and then what led to all of this? It's always fascinating to hear kind of the backstories of how these companies spin out.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the great challenges of working in a major corporate telco is innovation, right? And I'm not sure my CEO would be happy, but Tata Communications is no exception to that. So what the CEO does to try and address that is he's put together an internal scheme. It's an internal sort of startup program scheme. Mokanix itself is a Tata Communications business, which is incubated in this company Shape the Future program, right? So what the company does is says, look, how can we be more relevant, more exciting, more innovative to the future? Has any of the employees got an idea, a concept for a business? We all get the opportunity, all the employees get an opportunity to pitch. This idea from Mokanix was one of the pitch-winning ideas last year. So since October last year, we've been trying to spin up this business around IoT, which we see as one of the next big things, right? For me, IoT is not, it's a real sort of future destination. So today we see, smart kettles, smart fridges, smart lights, smart thermostats. That's all pretty cool. It's not really integrated. But I think, looking out to the future, you can see everything comes together in one sort of holistic, cloud-based IoT future where, your smartphone talks to your car, talks to the street lights, talks to the airport, talks to the parking bay, everything, talks to itself, making life cheaper, easier, and I guess more eco-friendly for all of us.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point there too. So the last episode, we actually spent a good bit of time digging into the concept of, okay, let's take the home stuff, for instance, right? Yes, you can do Internet of Things, and yes, you can pretty much assume a good wireless connection inside of a home, for instance. Mm-hmm. But what happens when it is outside of the house? What happens when we get these devices kind of dispersed all over the place? You get a couple different problems. You get the transport layer problem. You also get the processing power and where is the data and how do you access the data problem if you're doing anything more than just basic ingestion of data. And so tell us a little bit, because I believe that kind of goes to the origins of the company and your interest in IoT as air quotes here, the next big thing. what got you thinking about all of this and starting to think about, those areas and those problems?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been working in the telco industry for a long time, right? So I've seen everything used to be around vehicle telematics, that then became M2M, and now we call it IoT. It's pretty much the same sort of thing. Is any mobile operator out there, be it Sprint, be it AT&T, be it Vodafone over here in Europe, they all offer SIM cards directly to the consumer or to businesses, and they can put them into devices and get basic level connectivity. The great thing about cellular connection, of course, is it's pretty ubiquitous. It's available in most places. It can support some pretty high bandwidth as well. So if you want to do anything from video streaming down to just retrieving a few bytes from a sensor, then that's all available to you with some pretty wide coverage available, right? What we were trying to do with Mokanix is try and take that to the next step. Through my experience of working in the telco industry, it became apparent there's a whole bunch of functionality that sits within the mobile network itself that the mobile networks use for their own purposes, right? They know where your cell phone is, so they know where to direct your call. They can restrict your bandwidth when you come to the end of your cellular data. They can, set up parental controls on your device. Well, what if we actually took those controls and offered them to developers through APIs? So that's a very high level what we're trying to do with Mokanix, but also we're trying to disrupt some of the other sort of paradigms that have become apparent, like, you get one SIM card works on one network. Well, what if you could have a SIM card that operated on all the networks in your country simultaneously? So you always had the best coverage wherever you were. What about if you didn't have to pay $10, $15 a month for your SIM card? You could actually pay for what you used on a monthly basis. We're looking at all of these areas to see what sort of innovation we can bring to the market.
And what kind of devices do you envision? Is there certain devices that are kind of, I'll use the term low-hanging fruit, right, for this kind of solution? There is of course, the generic answer is yes, you can do it for everything everywhere, but you probably have some ideas in mind of, okay, these are the areas that this makes the most impact quickest. And so what is your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a number of sort of live customers running, early stage beta customers running right now. The one we talk about quite a lot is it's actually a smart metering company. So they provide a B2B service to large corporates where they'll come in, they'll operate as an energy broker, get you on the cheapest tariff, but also they want to put their own smart meter into your business so they can monitor your usage, they can identify trends of maybe you left equipment on overnight, etc. A bit of a sort of value add to their customers. And historically, they would always plug their meters into an RJ45, get onto the corporate LAN, and off they go. And what they're finding over time is there's less and less copper in buildings, and everything is kind of Wi-Fi based. Getting onto the corporate Wi-Fi has its own challenges with passwords, IT security, etc. So they want to have their own independent over-the-top connectivity, if you like, is what they're offering through our SIM cards. It's kind of weird because enterprise smart meters sounds like it's a pretty low bandwidth application. They're going to want to maybe pull your meter reading once a day, once a week, once a month. These guys are crazy, and they actually want to go down to per second readings. That actually generates an awful lot of data. So it's perfect for cellular. Cellular can offer all of that bandwidth and can bring all that data back. And, with the Mokanix solution, we can offer some kind of more attractive bundling of low application, high application devices, so that, the customer can get the best benefit of their total data usage.
And that makes perfect sense because, though somebody coming into this new, it is a little bit of like, okay, why go invent a transport layer, right? Yeah. Why go do something like that when you have something like this readily available that you can then build upon foundationally? And that goes to the API aspect of it for me as well, because this is the first product I've seen so far, which is kind of that intersection of I'll say SIM cards and APIs, right? And so help everyone out with a little bit of what is the value add of the APIs and what does the solution bring on top of the SIM cards, and
Sure.
help us connect the dots there a little bit.
Sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've tried to take some functionality that we think will be useful to developers and expose it via these APIs. The whole idea of an API is it's something that you can use an external trigger to interact with your SIM card and cause a change. So that could be either retrieving some information, or it could actually be changing the performance of the SIM card. So some of the unique stuff that we do, for example, is access layer controls. In certain circumstances, for example, when you're going into your corporate office, you might want to change the behavior of the SIM card so that when your employees come into work every day, they're restricted from using Facebook and other social media applications, right? So what you can do is you can build some software to sit on top of something like your entry card system or your logging in system, such that when you identify that a user has actually come into the corporate environment, you can use software to send an API call to a Mokanix SIM card to change the behavior of that SIM card. That's done automatically, it's done immediately, it's done on the fly, and that change can then be reversed when the user leaves the corporate building and goes home in the evening. So that's just kind of one example of how an API could be changed like that. Also, at any given time, you might want to know where your device is. You might want to know where your SIM card is. You can send a simple API call from an application, or it can be done through our SIM management portal and just say, where's my device? You don't need to have GPS capability on the device. The network always knows where the SIM cards are. So you can get a location back just by sending a simple command line call to the Mokanix platform.
No,
what we're trying to do.
Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what we're trying to do, and the reason we called it Mokanix, right, mobile Mokanix, is offer a toolkit to developers. The idea is, here's a bunch of tools, here's a bunch of applications, here's a bunch of triggers that you can use. Guys, what do you want to make of it, right? Knock our socks off. Show us what you can make.
And so would you embed this API into existing applications? Would this be applications running on top of other ones? How would this typically be implemented?
Yeah, there are a number of different ways that people could be using our APIs. We've had some inquiries from people who are looking at single use cases. They just really want to use the APIs, set them, forget them, configure their SIM cards in a certain way for application. And typically we guess that would be done perhaps through the web portal that we offer. For other use cases, people want more sort of dynamic applications. So, we could imagine a company like Uber, for example, if they wanted to penetrate a given market where they couldn't attract drivers because the cost of cellular data was too high, they can actually give out SIM cards to prospective employees who then would use an app to come on shift and then use the triggering of them coming on shift through a text message or something of that nature to actually then flip the behavior of the SIM card, turn on the bandwidth, open it up for Google Maps use of the application, and then when the driver comes off shift, there'll be a different trigger to, again, change the behavior of the SIM card back to what it was.
No, that makes perfect sense. That's fantastic. Now, let me ask you this. Sometimes, we talk about all the advantages. What are maybe some of the disadvantages of SIM technology as the transport layer? Because, I hear about other transport layers, and then, of course, like low power solutions and all of these other ways we can kind of get data back and forth. And so what are some of the other considerations on the flip side to SIM technology?
Yeah, and it's, we're not pretending that using cellular is necessarily ever the cheapest solution, right? There's lots of really good technologies out there, with LoRa, Sigfox, things of that nature. Very much more suited to low bandwidth applications. But on the flip side of that, they also support low power. So if you want to do something like measure the weight of the trash that you put out every week, you're going to want to do that over LoRa because you can get flood coverage for a city with a single LoRa transmitter. You can put a device into a trash can that you don't need to change the battery for 5 years. It's a much better use case. However, that's fine for the urban areas. How do you address the rural areas? These rural areas oftentimes have got connectivity already. So, we see cellular as being complementary, I guess, to some of the sort of the narrower band IoT technologies. Right now, cellular tends to be power hungry. It tends to be expensive because the minimum billing increment is per kilobyte. What we're seeing, though, is mobile operators are recognizing that this is a challenge, and they are getting around. All the standards have been set, and they're getting around to introducing some narrowband technologies. So I don't know if any of your listeners have heard of NB-IoT is one particular standard. There's LTE, Cat-M, and a few others. So, with Mokanix, we've pinned our future to cellular. We think ultimately cellular will be the winner in this space. But we recognise that there's still space for other connectivity technologies, even good old Wi-Fi and Bluetooth will still be around for many years to come.
Yeah, and it almost seems like there's a bit of a hierarchy of, it's trade-offs of bandwidth and power consumption. If you say Wi-Fi is top of the food chain, and then you almost say SIM cards is kind of in the middle, and then you've got for areas where you have high bandwidth and maybe a high density, but then those rural areas may not be a proper solution, if I use that term. And so it almost seems like, in my head, I kind of have this like pyramid, right? This pyramid hierarchy of how things are working for something like that. Now, last topic, and then we'll let you go here, is I'm always curious, especially in the IoT space, around security. Obviously, SIM card technology being as mature as it is, and obviously all the privacy things that have kind of grown up around the industry already, there's a pretty decent amount of security out of the box. How much of that is just then reused and reutilized? And then how much of that is something that is more unique to IoT?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The cellular networks have put a lot of time and effort into ensuring that they are secure. Right? There's a couple of known challenges that they're addressing at the moment, particularly around SS7 signaling. But the network cores that these large telcos operate are inherently secure. And again, as part of what we're trying to do is to give access to people that need that level of security, really from soup to nuts. So a feature that we're going to be bringing out relatively soon will offer VPN security. So you can get a VPN connection directly into the back of the mobile network operator. So your device connected to a cell tower is secure. Cell tower through the mobile network core is secure. Mobile network core, full VPN security into the cloud and into your application. We're a firm believer that security is really important, and we're also a firm believer that security should be achievable and available to all at a reasonable price, because we've seen some horrible IoT attacks like the Mirai botnet attack and many others that have caused all kinds of trouble with cheap IoT devices. People will still always go out and buy cheap IoT devices. I think we have a responsibility to try and protect them as best we can in the transport layer.
Yeah, and it really does seem, you bring up a great point, because it seems like there is a trend. And this isn't an IoT thing. This is really early adoption of technology trend I've seen over and over. Of what tends to happen is the early adopters just want to get it going. And so the security becomes the afterthought, and okay, I'm going to use the defaults. And there's all these stories about things just using the horrible out of the box defaults, and then really, really bad things happen. And that's not IoT. That's everywhere. But it seems to me with the explosion of IoT that issue then could be magnified. It almost seems like an exponential problem of something like that at a very elementary level.
Absolutely. When your whole purpose is to try and connect the internet to everything, you're allowing access to hackers to everything, right? Right now, there's no hacker in the world can actually get access to my fridge because it's not connected to the internet. As soon as I connect it, who knows what could be done. So we've been kind of lucky because we've come around at a time where it obviously makes complete sense to build security in from day one. So it's not something that we've had to think about, early adoption, bolting on afterwards. It's been at the forefront of everything that we've done from day one. And like I say, our approach is give the tools to the developers. We trust the community to know what they're doing. If they need security for their application, it's available to them, and more power to their elbow.
Yeah, that makes fantastic sense. So, Stuart, with that, we're going to kind of wrap there. Where can everyone find out more about you, more about Mokanix, and if they wanted to dig in a little deeper, what's the best next steps for them?
Best thing is to come and look at our website, really. It seems very 1980s to be directing people to the website, but nevertheless, that's what we do. So it's mokanix.io. That's mokanix.io. That's where you find all the information, all the documentation, all the pricing. You can go ahead and sign up and order. We'll take orders from anybody. Again, we're happy if you're a hobbyist working in your bedroom, whether you're just playing for fun or whether you're trying to build the next unicorn. All the way up to any sort of corporate developers who have been challenged by their boss to build a new corporate solution. We're happy to receive customers across the spectrum there. That's with Mokanix. Myself, you can find me on LinkedIn if you search for Mokanix. You can also follow me on Twitter if you really want to. My corporate account is at Telco Bytes. That's where I talk about things in the mobile industry, most often things that amuse and frustrate me. But
fair enough. I think
you're welcome to follow me there.
That's pretty much everyone's standard MO for Twitter these days. I agreed. Well, fantastic. Thank you very much for your time today, Stuart. And on behalf of Brian, who wasn't able to make it this week, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to everyone next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more podcasts, show notes, and everything social media. And visit acloud.guru for all your cloud training needs.